So you've landed a great client, and after the identity process, you are still alive. That deserves a celebration and round of applause. And this is the final step. Let's do it. The template will be available to download. Click the link in the description. Brand guidelines, also known as brand style guides or brand manuals. They are a set of rules, principles, and standards that define how a brand presents itself to the public. They serve as a roadmap for maintaining a consistent and recognizable brand identity. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of my branding content. Without further ado, let's jump into the template and see what it contains. To start, we usually put the logo of the project that we just did, and the title and the version, so that when clients receive new versions of the guideline, they won't be confused and they're always up to date because you are clearly labeled which version it is and the dates as well. Let's move on to the content. The first thing I put in this particular guideline is the outcome of the strategy session that we did for the client, which is this section about the brand. If you didn't do the strategy session, feel free to delete this part and just start with the logo. And then we have color, pattern, illustrations if any, typography, and some other communication templates. And the most important part for me personally is the files explained. In this session, we explain what files that we provided to the client and how can they find the files that they need. It's a clear navigation page for the client. Now first, we have about the brand. We explain who we are, and then we have purpose statement, brand vision, mission, values, positioning, personality, brand voice, tagline, words. In this video particularly, we aren't going to dive into the specific of this part. If you're interested in learning how to do the strategy session, click the link in here or here and check out the other video that I had made a couple of weeks back. Let's move on to the next part, logo. First of all, we put the logo options where the clients can see clearly what they are. And then we have the monogram. I usually like to put a little bit of explanation just to remind them the strategy session and the design process that we did, why we chose this particular logo, this particular monogram. And then we move on to the primary version of the logo. In this section, I like to put a little bit of explanation on the logo design and the rules to follow, because they aren't us, they aren't the designers. They need a little bit of guidelines on how to use the files, how to use the logos. So we make it easier for them to understand. For example, in here, there are rules, including always use original logo, never recreate it. It should always be used in its entirety. Do not alter the sizing or positioning of the components. Our logo must always be readable. And then we put other versions of the logo in here. Also, protection area and minimum size. Without this guide in here, they might put the logo too small for anyone to recognize. So we want to make it clear. Next up, we have logo don'ts. I like to put the common mistakes that people tend to make with the logos and to make it clear, please don't make these mistakes. And then we have co-brand. If your client's brand is going to co-brand with another brand, then they should know exactly how to put their brands and their partner's brand together. Next up, color. We first put the primary palette of the brand. Usually it contains 3 or 4 primary colors and then secondary colors. For the colors, I do like to give it a name. For example, in here, this brand is called Buddha Blues, and then for the primary blue color, I called it Buddha Blue. And then for the secondary colors, I just gave it names that's easier to remember and is easier to be referred to. Next up, we have pattern. If your brand has any patterns, put it here and put on the rules as well. What are the do's and what are the don'ts? For the pattern, I like to give it some examples. Examples of usage for using on clothing, tote bags, or other materials, so that they have a basic guideline to follow. Next up, we have illustrations. If your brand has any illustrations, you put it here and put on the do's and don'ts for the illustration as well. Let's look at the example in here. There are some illustration rules like these. Do not change the thickness of the strokes. Do not create sans from the illustrations. Do not use the illustration in the logo. Do not use multiple illustrations on the same surface. Do not change the colors of the illustrations. Do not rotate the illustration. Do not use illustration with other color palette. Do not color in the illustration. So that when they took over the style guide, they wouldn't do the things that would make the brand seem inconsistent. Next up, we have typography. If your brand has multiple languages, to start with, you put your local language first and then English version and then maybe other language that you have for the brand as well. Let's look at this English example. For the title, we use Dodo font. For the slogan and body, we use Montserrat. And then I like to give it some examples. For this one, I gave it a title example and a content example, and I gave a mock-up example in here where they can see how it's going to look like and how it should look like. And this one is an example of typography on a poster. There are rules to follow, and for your brand, make sure that you make it really clear what are the typography rules for them to follow. And then we have advertising communications templates. For this session, I like to put 3 to 5 templates for the clients and their designers to have a good feel of what this brand is going to look like. Some accessories in here, and then some outdoor advertising in here, and social media template in here. And then we have photography. What kind of photography your brand is going to use? If we make it clear in the beginning, for example, this brand, we're going to use photography that depicts children's rather than the products only, so that we can focus on the emotional side and connect with the audience on the emotional level rather than just selling them the product. The last bit, file explained. First of all, we have file formats. What are the formats we're going to give to the clients? There are 5 different formats: AI, EPS, PDF, PNG, and JPEG. And here I gave it a little bit of description of which one to use and which one not to use and what scenario should be used. We make it really clear and easy to understand. The last but not the least, find your file. In here, we clearly tell the client how to find the files that they want. For example, when they navigate to the file folder, the first folder we have is strategy workshop. If they want to find the roadmap from the strategy workshop, that's where they go. And if they want to find some collateral designs, and that's where they go. It's very clear and well informed. That's it for the template. If you find it helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with others who are also on the branding journey. And don't forget to download the template, link in the description below. See you next time. Oh, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and comment below.